Well, welcome to this week's Gennev webinar. This week is a special week. We are hosting Amy Schmidt, and today we are celebrating the launch of her new book called Cannonball. And we're going to talk a lot about that. But first of all, welcome to the weekly webinar. You're used to seeing Stacy Kazanchuk, our Director of Health Coaching from Gennev. And this week you get me. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Gennev, Jill Angelo. And so welcome, and welcome to our guest, Amy Schmidt. Amy is a podcaster. She's an author, public speaker, blogger, a CEO of AKS and Associates, and she's the founder of Fearlessly Facing 50, whose mission is to empower and encourage women 40 plus to go all in, to not lose their identity, and to become visible or not become invisible. She wants to embolden women to push their fears aside and create the life they envision for themselves going forward, midlife and beyond. And she's now the author of Cannonball. Here's my copy of the book. I just got it in the mail. Excited about it. Congratulations, Amy. This is a huge accomplishment.
Oh, thank you so much, Jill. I'm so excited to be here. Thanks so much. And what a great day. I know. And you got the book. This is just awesome.
Yeah. You must just feel, we were talking a little bit about this before we started, but you must feel like it's your wedding day or it's your birthday. Like it's such a big day. How are you today?
Oh, it is a big day. I know it's been a long time in the making, but you know what it was? I woke up this morning and I just thought, wow, my heart is just filled with gratitude, to be honest, because I'm just so grateful for the opportunity to do it. And actually, I'm proud of myself, which, a lot of women don't say, and it's what I talk about in the book. So I'm just going to put it out there. I'm proud that I did it. And so it is a little bit like your wedding day or the birth of your first child. It's like there's this excitement. You kind of feel like a kid in a candy store. And right after this, I have my official launch. So I showed Jill, I've got my little wine glasses and champagne glasses ready to go virtual. So so thank you so much. It's an exciting day.
That's awesome. Oh, well, yeah. And not to mention, Amy's like doing these things back to back. So right after this, she goes into her official launch party. So if you want to find her on Facebook, she's doing it live on Facebook Live. Just look for Fearlessly Facing 50. Is that correct, Amy?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're doing a live event there, which will be really cool. And my husband's on the other part of the country. So it's friends and family and publishers, and it's really going to be fun.
Awesome. Well, we're glad that you made Gennev's weekly webinar kind of the pre-funk to the launch party. So let's get into it. Just like any webinar, I invite people to ask questions in the chat or the Q&A in the Zoom. We will get to those along the way. But let's just dive into the conversation. And Amy, more than anything, talk a little bit about I read just a little bit of an overview around the book, but describe it for everyone. Why'd you write? What's it about? Why did you write it? What do you hope to achieve with the book?
Great. Yeah, it's called Cannonball. And right off the bat, people have said, why'd you call it Cannonball? And so, I always tell women to think back to when they were kids and they arrive at a pool and, they're jumping in and they're saying to their mom, watch me, and they just keep doing it. And then picture yourself, you're older, maybe you're at midlife and you go over and you just so want to go off that high dive or that diving board and you get stopped in fear. Something's holding you back. And so I really wanted to call it Cannonball because I feel like every woman right now out there that's at midlife and beyond can have their cannonball moment. They've earned it. And so when I went around ideas around this book, it was really about the conversations I was having with women around my age that we're all having these same type, common thread conversations. And we all go through different things at this phase of life. And so I decided to just open the dialogue, share my story, share other women's stories that I've encountered along my journey, and then have reflections about how you can incorporate this into your life so that you can cannonball, whatever that looks like for you. And that's why I'm so excited about it.
I started reading it last night, and it's really, you feel good reading it. Yeah, I think it's, you feel good when people say the things that you always think, or the things that you always do, and someone's willing to admit it. And I just feel like right now, a book like this is just so needed. Can you share a little bit about your willingness to put yourself out there to be so vulnerable, and why you feel a book like this is just more important than ever right now.
You know, it is about being vulnerable. It is about putting yourself out there, and it's about being brave. And that's really part of it. And I think as women, we need to step out of our comfort zone and be brave. We've just, done so many things in our life and so many experiences. And sometimes we forget to reflect on our own highlight reel. And so it's funny that you bring that up about putting myself out there, because my brother, who's going to join me, I have 4 siblings. My parents have passed away, but I have 4 siblings that are just my biggest cheerleaders. And one of my brothers was one of my beta readers. So he read it through and through, and before it was published, and he saw the cover. And I got a text from him, and he said, Amy, he's 10 years older than I am. He said, do you really want to put that on the cover? He said, that's really bold. I'm your big brother. Do you really want to put the cover out there? And it is me standing on a cliff. And I've done it before. I have cannonballed off things. And I said, you know what, Dave, I'm going to, because I want to walk the walk and talk the talk. This is about putting yourself out there and allowing yourself to have other people, look at you and say, wow, she can do that. I can too. And I think that's really what it's all about. So the whole book for me is my story. And a lot of it you're going to laugh. And a lot of people call me a conversationalist type of writer, where you feel like you're in the room with me when you read it, which is my hope. But you'll be right along with me, and you'll find a little bit about me, growing up, a few things that I went through that other women might have encountered, losing their parents, and how to kind of step forward and live forward with that. So there's all sorts of things that I think women will find relatable. And I think it's important at this time of our life as well to be authentic and genuine and out there, because there's so many people that have these same types of stories and situations. So it's about being brave.
You mentioned that this has been a long time in the making. Have you always wanted to write a book, or did this really just wash upon you at one point in your life?
You know what? I have always wanted to write a book. I wrote a book when I worked for a pharmaceutical company. Oh gosh, I worked in marketing for a few years, and I did a book for HR because we had moved so many times. At that point in my relationship, my marriage, I had already moved 4 times. So I thought, you know what? I called it, the first thing I did was cry. And it was about picking yourself up and relocating. And I've always, since that, it's just a little handbook, I wanted to write a book. But I got stuck along the way, to be honest. And I put that in the book. There were times when I got stopped in my tracks, that I just couldn't quite make it up those rungs of that high ladder, because I was afraid of what people might think. It needed to be perfect, or was the timing right? Or, all of those things that we tend to do as women.
Yeah. Yeah. When you think about kind of those moments of like needing to step the next rung, or where you were challenged, did you ever just say, I'm not going to do this? And then what was it that would push you over the hump at those tough moments?
Absolutely. I had times when I thought, all right, am I really going to do this? I mean, I remember with my podcast going live for the first time and having the volume off the whole time. And, all of a sudden I got a text from one of my kids. And they said, Mom, you look great, but I can't hear a thing you're saying. Challenging myself around technology was a big part of launching my podcast, even writing my book, to be honest. And I think that's part of what we need to realize, is that, finding your confidence is also the ability to fail and pick yourself back up and keep moving forward. And you have to embrace those things and say, hey, all right, you know what? At the moment, it was catastrophic for me. I thought, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Why, there's no volume on and everybody's going to see this. Well, of course, not that many people are going to see it. And it really doesn't matter, because you pick yourself up and you just continue to, it's that momentum forward. And I think for any woman listening right now that's, at midlife or beyond, or anywhere in their life, if they're stuck, it really is just about living and looking forward and picking one thing that you can do every day, just to engage in something new or different or scary, putting yourself out there.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to ask you, first of all, before we get into the book, because I'm going to ask you a few questions around things I want to know, or even have you read from the book a little bit. But, you mentioned your brother talking about the cover.
Yes.
And you literally are about to do a cannonball.
Yes.
You write in the book, you're a swimmer. Like, you've had a background, you've been a swimmer. Do you literally love to cannonballs, or like, what were you thinking about in this moment? Because you look like you're on a tall rock, and you're thinking about it like it was
Totally.
a nervous moment.
Totally, absolutely. And I have been a swimmer. I swam all the way through college, from age 6 all the way through college. I also was able to coach swimming, which was great. So water has always been a big thing. Cannonballing, I can't say I always love to do, because to be honest, I'm scared of heights. So anytime I've jumped off a cliff, that one included, which was in Jamaica at Rick's. If anybody knows Rick's Cafe, it's very, very famous. There's always a little hesitation about it, because I'm there and I'm thinking, can I do it? Can I really go? Because I do. I have a real, fear of heights. But yeah, that's just something you just continue to scare yourself, continue to put yourself out there and challenge it.
Well, let's dive into the book a little bit. And the first question I have for you is, what was the hardest bit to write about? Because again, you get so vulnerable. Is there one element out of all of them, or one story that was really hard for you to pull out and share?
Yeah, that's a good question. There were a few times in there. Well, I am very vulnerable in the book. It really is. It is me. I put myself out there. One of the most difficult stories I wrote about was when I lost my dad. And I think part of it too was because I was and Jill, you'll relate to this in terms of all of your knowledge around menopause and this age. I was 43 when I lost my dad. I lived in Germany at the time. I flew back. You'll read about it in the book. And, I had to fly from Frankfurt to Chicago to get to Milwaukee. So it was across the pond. My nephews picked me up and had to drive another hour and a half to Milwaukee. And I remember my brother, and I still get goosebumps when I talk about my brother-in-law, standing in the entranceway of the hospital and just said, he's waiting for you. And that was a really, really big moment for me. I remember going in, and I had been away. I mean, I lived in Germany for almost 6 years with my family. I wasn't able to get home. I wasn't the sibling that was there caring for my parents all the time. So I think I had feelings of guilt, feelings of anxiety, of just being overwhelmed in the moment. I wasn't able to travel with my husband and my kids to get there. So there were all these encompassing feelings. And I think it was the first time that I really had a true panic, like a panic attack. And I write about that in the book, because I think a lot of women can relate to that, feeling that anxiety, that overwhelm, those feelings of guilt that sometimes we put on ourselves, not being able to control the situation. And so that's something I write about that was difficult for me. And it was one where I had to write and step away and come back to, because I just take myself back in my mind to that particular moment. Yeah. And I think,
go ahead.
no, and I think, hormones play a big part in that, to be honest. I think for me, anxiety is a big part of my perimenopause. That's just part of it. And I think that really kind of reared its ugly head, those particular moments. And that's what we deal with as women.
Yeah. Well, and like so many women, you're sandwiched in between caring for parents versus caring for your family and your kids.
Right.
And I think that's something that every woman can identify with, who has those two pressure points in her life. How in that scenario, did you learn anything about how you manage your own anxiety, whether it was perimenopause and hormonally related, or whether, how, you're like, I might not have been here for him before leading up to this, but I'm here now, and
Right.
he's waiting for me. Like, what was the self-talk that helped you get through it?
Well, I'll have to say, all of my siblings were there, and my brother that was with me with this book, helping me write, because he's a writer as well. He sat there with me in the hallway of the hospital and really just held me and just said, Amy, he knows you're here. And I really needed to process that on my own. And it took some time, for sure. But you have to realize that you do the best given the circumstances that you have. And you have to have comfort and peace with that. You're certainly going to process it differently, and it may take longer. You may feel some, I was feeling guilty that I didn't get there sooner, but there were, there's circumstances you just can't control. And I think that's part of it. Sometimes as a woman, it's difficult to give up control. You want to control it all. You want to take the lead ropes on everything. And you have to realize that there are times when you can't, but you have to be content with the circumstances and know that, you were always there, and he knows how much I loved him. So I have to be content with that as it goes on.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
You can tell it's a deep part of who you are. But I think it's
Right.
so common. Like there's just a lot of women can identify with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Here's another one for you. What's the paragraph you hope women who have trouble being vulnerable will internalize the most? And I'm sure it's hard to narrow it down, but is there a bit or a paragraph or a part in the book?
I think so. One thing I really loved in the book is I talk about being the hero of your own story. And I try to really get that message across to women that take a moment every so often and just close your eyes and reflect back on what you've all accomplished, because we tend to just continue to go and push and keep going and stop to really savor what all we've accomplished. So one thing I wrote in the book was, you're all you need right now. You are the hero in your own story. You are what you need to choose being brave and having courage to take the next step forward. We're all that woman you encounter at work, at the gym, at the grocery store, at the soccer field, or the pickup line at school. And you really matter. I think that's a really important part of the book, because I want people to really, and I want women to reflect on that, no matter what their circumstance or story. I had a wonderful woman reach out to me a couple of months ago, and she said, I've been listening to your podcast and I do some blogging and things, and she had heard me speak, and she said, I just enrolled to get my degree. I went back, I'm 53. And you talk about the power of 3 words, just start and begin. I talk about that a lot. And she said, I decided to just start again. And I feel so good about that. So that's what it's about, and that's the hero in your own story right there. That's your moment of brilliance. It's fantastic.
Yeah, you hear so much, and I know you address this in the book, about women feeling invisible. What can you put feeling to that word invisible? Because I hear it often amongst the women who come to Gennev, and I think you really address it here around being the hero of your own story. Talk a little bit about invisibility, and what is it that makes women feel? What is there a change in your life, or does it just come on and you don't even know that this notion of being visible is just fading?
Yeah, I love that question, Jill, because I think it's true for so many women. And I talk about it a little bit. There's a time years ago when I was getting the kids ready for school. I have 3 kids, and my husband's getting ready to run out the door, and he said, "Hey, Mom, would you grab the laundry, at the dry cleaner on the way home?" And I thought, sure, I can do that, but I'm Amy. I've been a wife, a daughter, a sister, a mother. But where's Amy? And I think that's where women tend to start feeling invisible, because their roles change so many times during their facet of life. If you have children or stepchildren, or if you don't, if you're a wife, if you're a sister, a daughter, all of those things change, and those roles change. And I think women sometimes tend to feel like, wow, where did I go? I'm just mom, or I'm just a wife, or I'm just a daughter. So I think that's what women really struggle with. So you want to be the hero in your own story. You want to identify who you are. And that's another chapter I write about, is about, when you go to a party, and I'm going to challenge women to think about this that are listening today. When someone comes up to you and says, so what do you do? Because we get that question every so often, what do you do? Don't just say, I'm just a mom, or I just stay home, or, oh, I just work, 80 hours a week. Come up with your real greatness statement about who you are, and be ready for that. It's just going to roll right off your tongue when people say, hey, what do you do? Or, who are you? Those are the questions you have to really self-reflect on and find power in that.
I love that. I love that. It kind of goes hand in hand with a point you make in the book about people being able to accept compliments. And I think as women, we're coached on this all the time. If someone gives you a compliment, don't shoot it down in a way of if someone oh, that's beautiful top. Oh, it was really cheap and it was on sale, rather than just saying thank you. And I think that goes so much in hand with what do you do? What's your story? That's just such a more optimistic, empowering way to talk about or to respond to somebody. I love that.
Right. I think so too. And yeah, the power of compliments, we do tend to do that. You walk up to somebody and you say, wow, you look so great today. And oh, thank you, but, oh, I didn't get much sleep, or, oh, I haven't worked out in weeks, or, we tend to do that. So that's a real message that I try to get out there, is not to deflect it, just to say, thank you. And just savor that for a minute. And jot it down. When you get back in your car, put it in the notes, or text yourself and say, wow, she just said that I looked beautiful today, or I had a wonderful smile. And then on those days when you're feeling blue, pull it out and read it, because there's power in that too. And we need that as women, because we are our worst critics. We really are. We're so hard on ourselves, and we need to not deflect those compliments. We just need to take them and savor them.
All right, here's another one for you. What's a paragraph or a section of the book that brings you incredible joy?
Gosh. I'm trying to think of one. I have one actually that I do really love. And I don't think you've gotten this far in the book yet, Jill, but it talks about, and you might have heard this story, it's about confidence. And, it's how to build self-confidence. And a popular question, how do you build self-confidence? It's a popular question for those untold numbers of articles and videos and podcasts and all of the self-help things that we can do. Yet even with all of this knowledge on the subject, people still struggle with it and have difficulty believing in themselves. There's a story about a bird who, while flying, decided to land on a small branch. The branch was stable and held the bird, but while the bird rested there, the wind started to blow and the tree began to sway as the bird's foundation wavered. However, the bird remained unconcerned because it understood two valuable truths. First, the bird knew that it could fly no matter what happened to the branch. The bird could always rely on its own ability. And second, the bird knew there were other branches upon which it could settle if this one happened to fail. And this story reveals some valuable insights into healthy confidence about ability, as well as resilience and trust. And I think that's such an important, I love that little story about the bird, because I reflect on it often, but so often we don't trust ourselves, or we don't give ourselves permission to trust ourselves. And we should be able to do that. So that's a really fun part of the book about how to boost your confidence at midlife, and give you some strategies around what you can do, some reflections for you to think about as you move forward, so you can exude confidence. Because I feel strongly that, Lady Gaga may say you're born this way, but I think that, people say, Amy, were you confident? Were you always confident? I think I always had confidence for sure, but, I think it evolves over time through experiences, but we all have it. And it's uncovering those layers. And once again, reflecting on that highlight reel of, where our confidence is, because it can easily get buried. Mm-hmm. We need to rediscover that.
Yeah. Do you have any tips for when your confidence is starting to go down that slippery slope? Because the confidence definitely goes, it's a wave.
Oh, absolutely.
Do you have triggers that your confidence is kind of being hit, and I'm going to go to that place, and you work yourself out of it?
Absolutely. I do. And that's when I rely on my team, my support group, my friends. I reach out to them and say, hey, I really need help with this. And that's another part of the book that's so important, is we need to use our resources, use our networks. We all have them. And, when you're feeling like, you're second guessing yourself, or you're thinking, should I do this or not? Pick up the phone, call that one person, that anchor, that is going to listen to you and know the minute they hear you, they're going to say, Amy's got something going on, and I'm going to help her with this. So, everybody has to find, and women, it's difficult at this age because friends change, they evolve, evaporate, there's new friendships. So challenge yourself to really fill your cup with people that you can rely on those times when you're feeling self-doubt. We have to have those people as our anchor.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, I want to invite people to ask questions if they have questions, but I'm going to launch into a couple things in the book that I just got my copy. And so I was sharing with Amy prior to us getting on air, that, I'm just into it and I really love it. She does, you write like you talk. And I love that because you're so relatable. But there's three things I want to call out. And again, you have this power of declaring or stating the thing that we all think or do, but don't really want to admit.
Yeah, those bubbles over your head. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And so here, I'm going to start with this one. And you talk about joining a running group. And it was a big challenge for you. You're not a natural runner, you're a swimmer, and, but you put yourself into doing this. And you talk about joining the running group and entering the running store on the first day. And so I'm going to just read this. When I walked in the door of the running place, I could see a few other ladies. Most looked like runners. Let's be honest, ladies, we all do it. We profile. We tackle it head on later in the book, but I'll be honest, I was checking them all out. Okay, I profile. And oftentimes we dress for other women, profiling us. Like, talk a little bit about
Yes.
the profiling thing, because I was like, I do that all the time and I'm like not proud of it.
So true. So true. I mean, I remember that day because I signed up for the Couch to 5K because there's a great run in our town called Run Like a Mother. And a few of my friends said, come on, Amy, we're going to do this. And I mean, if you know me, I could swim miles, but running is just not my thing. So I was intimidated. I was nervous, but I signed up and I said, I just got to do this. I just got to try. And, you had 6 weeks to train for it. So you go to this local running store, and I had no idea how many people were going to show up, but I knew I had no excuses. You know how when you wake up and you think, oh, maybe one of the kids will be sick, or, oh, maybe the car won't start, or there's some way of you not getting there. You're trying to think, oh, I can't make it. No, I was committed. I was doing it. And so I showed up at the running store. And of course I did. You walk in and I second guessed my outfit. I thought, oh my gosh, what am I wearing? I look like a freak. Are these shoes even right? And all of the women, I kind of just, looked across the room, scanned the room a little bit and thought, oh man, I hope I don't get stuck with that woman that is 6'5", because I'm 5'4", and I'm going to be taking, how many steps. And I just thought, oh boy, what am I doing? But you just have to do it. And I did it. And I'll have to tell you that the woman that is 6'2" or 3, she became one of my biggest cheerleaders. And, I started the slowest in the group. I finished the slowest in the group, but I did it. And I think that's so important. But as women, we count ourselves out. I mean, how many times do you think about going into a yoga class or going into a new exercise class and you get sweaty palms just thinking of, oh man, I'm not going to know anybody. Am I wearing the right thing? There's just so much anxiety about it. And so that was pretty funny. But I have to say, I pushed through, and it's one of the times I rarely talked to people and met people because I could barely catch my breath on every run. But I did it, and it was fun. But we do tend to do that. And it's something we have to realize that as much as we're checking them out, they're checking us out too. And they're thinking, oh boy, she just walked in and she may be 5'4", but they're thinking something too. So we just have to move beyond that. But it is true. We do it all the time. We just do. And I don't think men do. They walk in and think,
yeah, what's the deal? Like, how do they just walk in and feel like, oh yeah, I belong here. Like, or I'm just going to do this. Maybe they just don't process that much.
No, I know. It's crazy.
Yeah. But I thank you for calling that out right there in the book, because I thought it was just it's very true for me. Okay, here's another one. And I love this, and you have this in a big bold. Perfectionism is really fear. Mm-hmm. And you talk about fear of the good old unknown, fear of getting older. Talk a little bit about that, because I don't typically think of perfectionism as a mask for fearing to do something or fearing whatever. And this was educational to me. And I was like, oh, that's really me. I do that all the time. And that's fear. That's what it looks like. So talk a little bit about that.
Not funny. Yeah. I think about that too. Yeah. Perfectionism. I'm a recovering perfectionist for sure. But it is fear, because you think of, I even do something as silly as packing for trips. I put it off and put it off and put it off. I pack for everybody else. I'll pack my husband. I will pack my kids perfectly. I still won't have my bag packed, 6 hours before I'm supposed to go. I will have gone to Costco and done a grocery run I didn't need to do, or I will have gone out to lunch with a friend that I certainly didn't have time to do because I should have been packing. But that underlying fear actually for me was getting on a plane, and it was all the logistics of getting from here to there that really stopped me of, trying to pack the perfect bag for this vacation. It sounds so silly, but that was fear getting in the way. It really was. I was nervous of getting on the plane and leaving the kids behind and doing all of that. And I do think fear stops us so often, and then we just put it off. It's procrastination and perfectionism, the two P's. And we as women tend to want everything to be perfect. With the podcast, I thought I had no idea what I was doing. I started it at 50, and I sat in the room, and, I'd gone to the Genius Bar. I talk about that because the people they actually are going to toast me when the Genius Bar opens up again, because I was there so many times and enrolled in classes and trying to figure this all out. But you can't let that fear of it being perfect stop you. So I think it's something I've earned, you just get it over time, I think. But I just decided to push record, and I was looking at a wall and I thought, is anybody going to listen? I don't know, but I'm going to do it anyway. So, I didn't need it to be perfect. And I think at 30 or 35, looking back at it, I would have had some fear. I wanted everything to be perfect. The perfect mom, the perfect this, the perfect outfits, everything had to be perfect. And I guess underlying of that was fearful that I wouldn't be accepted, or that I would be judged, or, people would make fun, or, all of those things that we think about. So it's something as women, we just need to continue just to put the perfectionist thing aside and realize that if it's not perfect the first time, you can always go back, recalibrate, readjust the sails, move forward.
Do you think, I think this notion of where you've gotten comfortable with, things not being perfect, do you think that you just have to arrive there over time with age? Or can it be quote unquote taught to the 30-something ever? Because I think personally for me, I get more and more comfortable with things not being perfect the older I am, because partly because I've known what it's like to try to make it perfect, and it didn't work out so well, or it took too much time, or whatever it is. Like, do you think it's purely like a thing with age, or do you think there are ways for younger women to just like embrace this in a different way, from hearing from the ones who have been around longer? And
yeah, it's interesting. Well, I have a 23-year-old daughter who, it's interesting because the lens is kind of flipped now, and she's watching me. We happen to be now working in the same place. She usually is in Manhattan, but I wonder how she's kind of viewing this for me, because she sees that I'm just going forward. Some things it's not always right, like the Instagram story, or when I went live and didn't have any volume, but I didn't really let it hiccup the cadence too much. I continued to go. I think we do change over time. I mean, I think it is a little bit of that, what's in it for me mentality shifts to what's in it for them. I think we are better able to use our resources and ask for help. I think we question our authority and question if we know enough, if are we going to look like we're not confident if we ask for help when we're 30 or 35, and we just keep kind of on that hamster wheel. And then all of a sudden we figure, wow, but if we do it this way and we ask, or we collaborate, over compete, that's so much more powerful. So I think that is definitely something that comes with age and experience, for sure. I do hope that women that, like my daughter, I do hope that she sees the value of conversation and connection and using your resources, as I've been able to do. And I hope she can do that better than I did at her age, to be honest, because I always wanted to just, I can do it alone. I can figure it out. I can get to the top doing it this way by myself. And that really doesn't work well. You really need collaboration over competition is key.
Yeah. And I think right hand in hand with that goes, asking for permission or needing permission. Like we hear that a lot from women, who are our clients and patients at Gennev, just needing permission to take a nap if they're feeling really tired and fatigued, or permission that, you might not be in the best mood, and that's not always in totally your control. It's also a chemical thing that's happening in your body with hormonal change. What do you say to women who say, I feel like I need permission for everything? How do I get out of that cycle?
Exactly. And I think that's being the hero of your own story. You don't have to ask permission. You don't need anybody to, I have a part in the book. I wish I could find it. It's something that I love to talk about, because it talks about the fact you can do it yourself. But I have to share that one of the parts in the story, in the book that I talk about, is, I should have outlined that better, it opens up, and I shouldn't spoil it, but basically the scene seems like it's a spa. I've got wearing blankets on me, and you haven't gotten to that part yet, have you, Jill?
No.
Okay. Yeah. And had all my kids home. I had this 48 hours of time together, and I ended up getting very sick, and I didn't ask for help. I tried to do it by myself, and went to the couch and laid down, and didn't want to bother anybody, didn't want to call, didn't want to go to the hospital, didn't want to upset the apple cart, so to speak. And so I still do that. Women have to be allowed to take the time to, what I should have done is just said, you know what? I'm not feeling well. I can't pull off this big steak dinner tonight. I'm so sorry. I can't do your 6 loads of laundry that you brought home for the weekend, even though I was looking forward to doing it because they're never home. But I wasn't feeling well, and I should have It's a would have, could have, should have type mentality. I should have asked for help and given myself permission to rest. And that's a big, big shift. And I've had to do it myself in my own life. And I think women need to just make that mind shift of when you need help, when you need rest, take that time for yourself. Make yourself a priority. Make yourself your guest of honor, because you really have to treat yourself like your guest of honor. You really do.
Yeah, I think that's so true. That's example. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
We've had one question. I've got one more thing in the book I want to pull up, but we've got a question here. Lots of my women friends say they don't really know what their passion is. How do we figure that out if it isn't clear?
That's a really good question. Yeah, because I always talk about, find your passion. I think it's all about lifetime learning and engaging in different things and experiences. And I talk about it in the book, opening your circle and not being so closed in this, this environment of really challenging yourself, because everybody has passions and it doesn't have to be what everybody else is doing. It can be something, really different that you've always wanted to do, or that's a really good question, how you find it. I think it's just really engaging in other experiences and putting yourself outside your comfort zone every so often, because we tend to get in these closed circles, and I feel it's important to make them a horseshoe and make them open. So that would be my advice. I think just challenge yourself outside your circle a bit.
Yeah. And sometimes it's a process of elimination. I'm not interested in that for that. And, I'm just going to carve that out.
Yeah.
On your note around expanding your circle, I want to read a small little paragraph, and I think that you wrote in the intro, and you talk about in the book how the intro was the last thing you wrote, and it's really powerful, and I can I'm thankful you spent as much time. It sounds like it was hard for you to write the intro because you wanted it to be the right intro. But it's very well done. So thank you. But this particular paragraph is so, it's apropos to what we're going through right now as a society. As women, we have tight circles, not on purpose, but simply because we don't like being uncomfortable. This book will make us think about those circles, making ourselves vulnerable and open to change. We will examine how to be comfortable being uncomfortable and allowing new people in. What I took away from this, in the time of racism, like we are part of, such a racist society. And I think that we've been blind to it in so many ways. And obviously recent events have brought this to a new level of like palpability, like people are feeling it in ways we've never felt it, no matter your skin color. And so much of becoming anti-racist is really expanding your circle and bringing others into your life. So you talk about it on a circle basis here in terms of finding new passions and, expanding yourself, but I think it even really applies to what's happening right now. Can you talk a little bit about that?
And I think we've been too comfortable. We've been too comfortable just staying in our own circle and not opening it up and opening the dialogue about things. It's actually something that I'm working on, and I have many friends that are, all different. I've got Black friends, I've got all sorts of different friends all over the world. But have I really sat down and engaged in conversations with them about their race? No, I really hadn't. And shame on me for not doing that. Just taking it for granted that, we're good friends. Why would I have to talk about that? So I think it is very, very important that we do engage in these conversations, because that's where connections are made. That's where knowledge is born, and that's what's so important right now. We don't have the knowledge. I don't have the knowledge, and I'm trying to learn. And there are so many resources available. So I do think it's so important, and I'm challenging myself around those friendships with friends of different race that all of these years I've had them as dear friends, and I've never really asked them, what is it like? I mean, that's short-sighted on my part. I'm not proud of that fact. So I have made it now, part of my conversations, I've reached out to them and said, listen, what's it like? Let's talk about this and open that dialogue. And certainly uncomfortable, to be honest, because these are good friends that, that I rely on, that I trust, that they trust me. And here it's a conversation we've never really had. Mm-hmm. So it's an important part of history right now. It's incredible, really. And you look at this moment in time, you look at the pandemic, and you look at how we've had to deal with this. And these moments are all so powerful. So I have made it very important. It's my priority now to engage in more conversations and use my resources and understand more and ask the questions, get uncomfortable with those, those conversations, and get comfortable being uncomfortable. That's the way we have to look at it.
Yeah. And I think anytime we go through change in our lives, whether it is due to changes with the pandemic or with racism in America right now, or turning 50, that notion of expanding your circle, I think it's just like a really important one, because it helps you move through that change. And that's kind of the key point, I think, that you were trying to point out with that statement that I love and took away from it.
Thank you.
We're about 5 minutes from the finish.
Awesome.
And I want to invite any final questions to come in. We will be giving away a free copy of Cannonball to one lucky registrant of the webinar.
Awesome.
So we'll notify her or him afterwards. But any remaining kind of points or things you'd like to mention, Amy, about the book, about your broader message around fearlessly facing 50, that you would love to just leave our listeners with?
Yeah, I'm excited for every woman to get this book, honestly. And like you said this morning, this is a big day because it's launch day for me. And I woke up and thought, wow, just take a deep breath and think, wow, women are going to be reading this. Like, they're really going to get a glimpse into Amy. Although I think I pretty much put myself out there on the podcast and things like that. I'm a pretty authentic person. But I just hope every woman gets out of it, just finds their confidence, finds their, just their ability to realize that there is so much more, that midlife doesn't stop you. I mean, we're living longer. Think of how many resources that are at our fingertips. Look what we're doing today with this virtual connection. It's amazing. And the power of connection and opening that dialogue and finding friends are all things that are going to be valuable takeaways in this book. And I hope that it sits on their shelf and it's like the what to expect when you were expecting, but it's the what to expect at midlife. And that's what I really hope. And I hope that the readers will engage with me and say, hey, I really like that. Or, hey, why did you do that? Because that's what I really want. I look so forward to that. I'm going to be doing virtual book clubs and some roundtable discussions around the book and some other things, because I really think there's going to be some real good things that people can pull and apply to their own life and feel confident and fearless. That's what it's about.
That's great. Well, I also suspect that it's probably going to become the go-to gift to give to, 50-year-olds, to women approaching. Right. I think one of the women who were commenting on the book said, I'm going to open this up like every year, every birthday as I approach 50, and just like give myself a little dose of confidence. So yes. It's a go-to gift. So again, it's Cannonball. You can obviously get it on Amazon. You're on #1 at the top of the list today.
I know.
In releases. So congratulations.
Couldn't believe it. Yeah. In midlife management, #1 new release. Just amazing. So thank you so much for the support. I hope everybody loves it and reads it. And thanks, Jill, for having me. It's just so much fun. And I just love your whole mission around Gennev and what you do. It's incredible. Really is.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, likewise, we love your mission as well. Have a wonderful celebration. We'll let you go so you can get ready for that. Take off again, Fearlessly Facing 50. Find her on Facebook, join the book launch, and enjoy it, Amy. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. We'll see you soon.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.